Thank you for joining us. This is Access Academy, and today we're talking about supporting communication for learners with visual and multiple impairments, the Sensory Learning Kit. Presenting today is Stacey Chambers, a teacher of students with visual impairments in Texas, and she has been in the field for over 12 years. She is passionate about team collaboration for instruction in the expanded core curriculum and routines-based instruction for learners with multiple impairments and with VI. And you will see that. It'll be so evident today when she speaks with us. She is the author of the Sensor Motor Spotlight and a consultant with APH to help with the revision of the Sensory Learning Kit with Millie Smith. And speaking of Millie Smith, she is also with us today, and we are privileged to have her join the conversation. She is nationally known expert on assessing and educating students with visual impairments and other disabilities, formerly a TVI at Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired, and she currently instructs professionals and parents. This is what you can expect today. We're going to define sensory response levels of the sensor motor learner. We're going to identify ways to assess present levels and sensory preferences. And lastly, examine the development of a sensor motor routine with embedded communication goals. And while we get things set up in the background, we do have a poll that we want to give you. What is your experience using the Sensory Learning Kit, the SLK? I currently use parts of the kit when working with students. I'm aware of the kit, but you know what? I feel a little intimidated knowing how to use it. I've seen pieces of the kit stored in a school closet, or maybe this is my first time hearing about this product. We would love to know a little bit about that. So while you answer that poll and tell us, what is your experience? What do you know about this product? I'm going to let Stacey get set up in the background. All right, so just to kind of see where we are at with it, let's see where you fit in the spectrum. I'm going to share this out. So what we find is that the majority of you, well, it's pretty all evenly divided, but 36% say, hey, I'm aware of this kid, but you know what? I'm a little intimidated, and I get it. 26%, or actually I should say, so 36% of you say I'm intimidated. 31% say, you know what? First time hearing about it, and you are in the right place. 26% say I currently use parts of the kit already when I'm working with my students. And about 7% said, I've seen pieces of the kit stored in a school closet. Well, you know what? Today you're going to learn what a treasure those pieces are. So I'm going to get things turned over to you, Stacey, so the learning can begin.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks for the warm welcome. Millie and I are so excited to be here today. And Millie's going to get us started with kind of laying the groundwork for our sensory motor stage learner.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here with us. The term sensory motor, I just want to get us all kind of plugged into that, because the research base that I'm going to be talking about that indicates that the strategies Stacey and I are going to talk about are best practice are specifically related to this unique group of learners. The title refers to learners with visual and multiple impairments. You know that in terms of cognitive levels of functioning, that covers a pretty wide spectrum. Everybody from learners who are just entering the early childhood curriculum kind of stage of things, to learners who are working on academic skills but significantly behind their peers. So we're not, some of these strategies may work well with those populations, but the research base is particularly for the sensory motor stage learner. So let's be clear about who we're talking about. Many of you will recognize the term sensory motor from the research of Jean Piaget. And the first thing I need to let you know, since we're required to use strategies that are based on current research, is that the research that Piaget did in the 50s has been ongoing ever since. It's still a vital part of cognitive psychology. And if you're interested in the more current research on sensory motor learners, it's usually called neo-Piagetianism or constructivism. But it is still the gold standard for looking at cognitive development. And most of you are aware of the fact that Piaget divided cognitive development into 3 global stages, sensory motor being the first developmentally, and then pre-operational and then operational. So we're going to talk about sensory motor stage learners. The characteristics are they are learners who are compared to typically developing infants and toddlers in the range of birth through 2 years old. They use sensing and learning systems to gain knowledge. And I just want to let you know that that terminology is very significant in the research base for best practices with this population. Sensing and learning systems to gain knowledge is from the work of a researcher really on the in terms of significance on the same level as Jean Piaget. Her name is Eleanor Gibson, and she's a researcher in the field of perceptual development, and in particular how perceptual development, the development of the use of the 5 external senses, relates to cognitive growth. And then the third characteristic of the sensory motor stage learner that I just want to refer to is they use vision and touch as their primary sources of learning. This is a little bit of a departure from the standard view of development for a lot of TVIs. So just let me say that I'm aware of the fact that most of us learn in our coursework and in workshops during our careers that vision is the primary sensory system. And that's absolutely true. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. It's absolutely true for learners from 2 years old onward. Vision is not the primary sensory system for learning at the sensory during most of the sensory motor stage. It's touch. And the reason for that is they're just, I mean, I could talk about the reasons for that for the rest of the time we have together. I'll just mention something really quickly. First of all, the sense touch, the efficiency of that system develops very, very quickly. And it's primary oral at first, and then it proceeds to the extremities. But it's a very highly efficient sensory system for gaining knowledge about people, objects, places, and actions in the sensory motor learner's world. And that's true before vision becomes anywhere close to as efficient. The way vision becomes more and more efficient is by being paired with touch. So just a clarification. Exploring is more mental than motor. This is a huge research development and has a huge impact on looking at sensory motor stage learners, particularly those with motor impairments, which you all know is a pretty significant percentage of the population. So if you're interested in learning more about exploring is more mental than motor, look at the research on motor cognition. And the bottom line on it is, the headline I want you to be aware of is that building up neurological networks in the brain is more related to thinking about what the learner wants his body to do than it is actually using muscles to execute those actions. And that's quite a change from what we have are used to thinking about. We want as much execution as we can get, but the execution doesn't mean anything without the thinking about the action first, and that's primary. So communication at the sensory motor stage, the foundation of communication is having two communication partners. And I know that sounds a little bit snarky, but you think, well, of course. But you know, in a lot of the programming, the communication skills programming that's being implemented in our programs for learners with multiple impairments, and specifically those with severe intellectual disabilities, is not two people. It's the learner and a device of some kind. And the devices are great. We want to use them, but what has to come before the use of a device is the learner learning that messages can be sent and received with another person. And that's done in direct one-on-one interactions and usually in social contexts. It's important that the partner of the learner with disabilities understand that it's their responsibility to make sure that the learner can understand the messages that they send. We can help the learner with visual and multiple impairments be the sender of messages as efficiently as possible in the very best ways by being good listeners. And the way we show a learner that we're a good communication partner is by picking up on the nonverbal messages that they send us and responding to those accurately and quickly and often. The third thing I just want to point out about communication at the sensory motor stage is we can help learners, our sensory motor stage learners, and we're talking about learners who are developmentally 0 to 2, but any chronological age. They can be adults. We help them be good receivers of messages sent to them by communicating in meaningful ways. And one of the big departures there is from later stage cognitive development is that learners at the sensory motor stage receive messages from us by facial expressions, by touch, and in terms of communication systems through the use of objects before we move up the ladder to more symbolic things like pictures. So object communication is a huge piece of communication here. One other thing on communication at the sensory motor stage, which is a departure from the way many of us are used to approaching things, is that sensory motor stage learners learn to understand the words their partners use before they use them themselves. So the development of receptive communication skills through speech or object communication systems, whatever it might be, learning to understand messages sent precedes and has to be in place before learners can be expected to use those same modes of communication expressively to send messages to others. The headline I always remember on this one is that was taught to me is that in typical semantic development, semantic meaning language, in typical semantic development, typically developing infants and toddlers at the age of 2 understand about 200 words, and they say about 20. So at this stage, we really emphasize receptive language development.
Okay. The sensory learning kit. I'm so excited that so many of you, this is the first time you're being introduced to the product. I think that's really, really exciting for us to be able to share with you about that today. It's really an incredible resource from the American Printing House for the Blind. It's a framework for supporting communication and learning for the sensory motor stage learner. It has tools for assessment and tools for designing instructional routines. And those are the building blocks for the sensory learning kit approach. And I love the sensory learning kit because it's designed to be a collaborative tool. It's really meant to be used with your team. So your classroom teacher, TVI, O&M, speech, PT, OT, everybody's coming together to work to design instruction to target specific skills for this sensory motor stage learner. I also love the kit because it works. And I can say that because I've been lucky enough to be part of a research project with Millie and some of the teachers and students in my school district, really putting these tools to the test. And we wanted to measure the impact of these strategies, and the outcomes were tremendous. Each and every participant achieved great progress during the research. And you can find the full article and details of that research in our article in the Journal of Visual Impairment and Blindness, and I encourage you to do that. We are going to take a look at the kit. So I know some of you are familiar with the kit, or you've seen pieces and parts in closets, but I would love if you could share in the chat maybe your favorite item from the kit. I would love to see what stands out to you. It comes in one of those great black plastic suitcases that we all know and love from APH. And in it, you will find the guidebook and the routines book. The guidebook has all of the assessment tools and how to use them. And the other thing that I love in the guidebook is really it outlines each of the team members' roles and how they can contribute to this process. The routines book is going to provide actual routines that you can use with your learners for a variety of sensory objects, which you all are listing below. I love that everybody has different objects that they love. In the kit, there are just a variety of different objects. I like that it provides access to different sensory channels and preferences. You'll find the pink vibrating pillow, a massager, fan, a colorful pinwheel, flashlight with overlays, and the mirror. The mirror is my favorite object. I've been able to use it in a variety of different routines. I see many of you love the power link, and I would agree. That's another object that comes in the kit, and along with the tactile switches. And they're so helpful for when you're building routines that utilize those switch activated devices. So as Amy mentioned earlier, we have a bit of news because we are going to be coming out with an update to this kit. Hopefully, Millie, I don't know, in the next couple months, are we thinking? Hopefully soon. And I just want to share a little bit about what that will look like. The main difference is that the emphasis is really on these strategies and the sensory learning kit approach rather than necessarily any of these particular items. And the reason for that is because the assessment and the instructional routines are really the backbone to all of this, because the objects that can be used within those routines could be some of these items from the kit, but they could also be things that are in your classrooms already, something that you found at the Dollar Tree or something that that child has in their home that they just really love. So the idea is that these strategies can be used with anything that your learner loves, that they are going to get motivated to explore and learn more about. So we are going to kind of walk through that process of what those strategies are today. And I'm excited. We're going to sprinkle in some of that new terminology and some of the new forms that you're going to see in the update. The update's called Sensing and Learning. And so we're going to see some of that today as well. And Millie is going to start us again with the first step in that process.
So in order to make sure that we identify attainable goals for our sensory motor stage learners, it's essential to establish a present level of performance. And the writers of our special education laws and policies idea were well aware of this, and that's the reason we have a present level assessment. I do want to mention that the research base for that approach, establishing an accurate present level of performance, what the learner can currently do, is based on the research on the zone of proximal development, or the ZPD as many people know it. And The zone of proximal development is very, very important for our learners with impairments, and but it's also the basis of our general education curriculum as well. And so in the general education curriculum, for instance, we teach our academic learners to add before we teach them to multiply. So the zone of proximal development, the research in this on this indicates that you establish what your learner can currently do, is present level, and then attainable goals, increments of learning, are a stretching of an existing skill, not a leap into the future beyond the learner's, I love this terminology of one of the researchers, beyond the learner's horizon of awareness. So the zone that we're looking for is first established with the present level. That's the beginning of the zone. And then the end of the zone, again, according to our established policies, is a goal that's attainable within a year. And that's our decision based on what we know about the learner of how far we can stretch the existing skill. So present levels are essential. The sensory motor approach, the SLK approach, soon to be sensing and learning approach, is to look at increments of development within the sensory motor stage in 4 zones. And most of you who are familiar with Piaget's work know that within the sensory motor stage, he had 6 substages. So I worked with some cognitive psychologists and other people to look at those substages and see how they could be worked into ZPDs for sensory motor stage learners. And all of the people that I worked with agreed that this was really essential because we have to have a way of showing progress in this population, some of whom, you know, may graduate from sensory motor to pre-operational, but some of them may stay in sensory motor stage for quite some time. And what we need to do for those learners is make sure they're making progress from zone to zone. So the 4 zones are, well, actually the first one is not a zone, I should say 3 zones. Where some learners are going to start, their present level may be extended states. And this comes from the work on arousal states or biobehavioral states, as some of you know the research. The extended states are on the low end of the spectrum, asleep and drowsy, and then on the high end of the spectrum, fussy and agitated. And it's learning does not occur at all or very inefficiently with learners who are in extended states. So one of the first goals, if that's the present level, that you may address is how attention level goals. How do you get your learner out of extended states and into attention? So the first zone is attention. That's the ability to concentrate on a person or an object or an action. And that's definitely a skill. It's the skill of paying attention to one thing while ignoring lots of other things. And I'm sure most of you are doing that right now. The second zone, the sensory motor learner may graduate to, if their present level is established at attention, then the goals would be geared toward moving them to exploration, which is attention and deliberate interaction with people and objects for the purpose of gaining more sensory information about them. And that's where that motor cognition becomes so important. In the exploration zone, we want the learner to be thinking about what they want to do with a person or an object, and then helping them do it. And if the skills are established, the present level is exploration, and we're going to help our learner graduate to the function zone, which is attention, exploration, and deliberate interaction with objects that demonstrates knowledge of how they're typically used by other people in a specific context. So in attention zone, I'm watching you do something with a spoon. An exploration zone, I'm interested in that, in what you're doing. And I find it so fascinating. I want to interact with the spoon. And so I may open my mouth because I want to get it in my mouth. That's exploration. Or I may extend my fingers because I want to get it in my hand. And if you help me get it in my hand, I may want to bang with it and hear the sound it makes. Exploration. And then in function, I watch what you do with the spoon, and I notice that you're putting stuff in your mouth, in your mouth with it, you're using it as a tool, or you're stirring something with it. You're using it as a tool in that way. And I want to do that too. I want to do it with you.
Okay, I'd like to introduce you to Adam. We're going to be sharing a bit of Adam's journey today, really looking at the different strategies from the sensory learning kit and how we use them with Adam to help him make some progress. I will share with you that at the time of this video, Adam had us a bit stumped. We really felt like he should be making some more progress. We wanted to see more communication with Adam. We wanted him to be making choices, really building his receptive language and engaging more with the people and objects around him. And we weren't really sure quite how to do that. But before we could really work on an instructional plan for Adam, we had to determine his present level. So we were looking at where is he spending most of his time out of those zones that Millie just shared about. So what we did was we met with the classroom teacher and got a schedule for his day. And we had her help us pick out the parts of his day where he was doing one-on-one interactions with the teacher. That could have been a routine that they already had in place or a favorite activity. And that was just a good time for us to be able to see how is he really engaging with people and objects? What skills are we able to observe that give us indicators for what his present level is? For Adam, that was the paint roller activity that he did with his teacher, Martha. And so that's the video that I'm going to show you today. And as we're watching the video, I would love if you could share in the chat just some of the observations that you're seeing. What stands out to you? What zones are you seeing him in during this observation? And we'll take a look and discuss it together.
Ms. Martha and Adam sit facing each other on the floor playing a familiar activity. Ms. Martha is holding up a paint roller. Ms. Martha waits for Adam to look at it. When he touches the roller, she rolls it on his chest and hands using light pressure. Adam smiles at Ms. Martha, and in reaction to the roller, he touches the roller periodically with his hands. This interaction with objects is typical for Adam. He demonstrates attention to objects and people using emerging exploration skills. Adam smiles, showing he is motivated by his interactions with Ms. Martha.
Okay, so what do y'all think? I don't see many comments quite yet, and that's okay because that's kind of how we felt. We noticed that Adam was spending a lot of time really happily being there with his teacher. You know, he would occasionally touch an object, but wasn't showing a lot of curiosity about the objects, didn't really demonstrate a lot of ways to explore the objects. I see Penny, you shared he was doing a bit of exploration. We just really weren't quite sure. I think the next comment is spot on. We saw a lot of attention with some emerging skills to exploration. I want to show you this worksheet. This is the present levels worksheet that's going to be in the sensing and learning. And it is what we can use to really, really investigate and take data on what we're observing during our present level observations. So, and I really encourage you to take video of these observation opportunities because you can really go back and look at them minute by minute to really think about and work with your team to kind of decide what was Adam showing us there? What are we able to see? So the worksheet has a place for you to put the time. So, you know, at the beginning, you know, minute 1, minute 2, how long is he spending engaging in a particular zone? So you'll indicate what zone you're observing the student engage in and the particular response. For Adam's case, he would be in the attention zone when he was sitting quietly, smiling, kind of moving his body a little bit, reacting to the roller. A lot of those were attention level responses. The media column on the worksheet is a place for you to indicate what object or person or activity was presented to the student. So in this case, for Adam, it was that paint roller. And then the conditions allow you to just maybe make some notes about the environment or how the item was presented that might be helpful to you for understanding the response that the student had. So when you've got all your information on this worksheet, you can really look through and analyze, where is the student spending most of their time? What skills are we seeing primarily for that learner? And that helps you identify their present level. So for Adam, we determined that his present level was that attention zone with a little bit of emerging skill for exploration. And that helps us as we continue to plan for his instruction. But we still needed to learn a little bit more information about Adam, which is what Millie's going to share next.
So step 2 in the strategies is to assess sensory efficiency and learning media. So TVIs, you're going to be, all of you do a learning media assessment. The sensing and learning approach gives you a protocol and a procedure for doing that for sensory motor stage learners. And so let's take a look at that. So one of the things that happens for sensory motor stage learners, especially those who are older chronologically, is that they, many of them have very, very limited access to people and objects. And part of the reason for that is that many of them don't like new stuff. They don't tolerate change really well because it's unfamiliar things create stress. So one of the things that this approach is designed to do is to find out what kinds of input they like the best. That's the sensory efficiency piece of it. And then to expand on the things we know they do like. And the expansion is the way we introduce more and more objects and people into their world so they can constantly be learning more and more about the world they live in. The biggest thing that reduces stress is, the researchers call it coherence. And what that means is understanding what's going on around you. And all of us can personally relate to that when we're in a situation where we don't understand what's going around us. Our flight just gets canceled at the airport or whatever it is. Our stress levels just hit the roof. And all of a sudden we can't read the screen with all the flight information on it, or certainly not as easily as we could before. So incoherence is the enemy of learning. Coherence is what reduces stress and makes learning possible. What we're going to do in this approach is find out what kind of input, what kind of sensory input the learner likes the best, and then expand on that and open up his world to more and more experiences with more and more objects and more people. So the first column is simply a place for you to indicate what item you're presenting to the learners. In this assessment, you start at the attention, in the attention zone. And what you're doing is you are assessing the learner's response to things that you present to the learner. So what you want to do is present items from all 5 external sensory channels. So that means primarily, as I mentioned before, touch. Remember, touch may be oral, it might not be hands, or it might be both. Sometimes it's even feet, depending on what your learner accesses things with the most efficiently. And then vision paired with touch, then hearing also paired with touch, and taste and smell. So you're going to present a variety of different kinds of items in the sensory channels that you know your learner likes. So how do you determine what they like? Well, you present an item, you indicate what sensory channel it is in column 2, and in column 3, this is really the heart of the assessment, you indicate whether the learner's response to your presentation of an item was positive or negative. Did they indicate they liked it, or did they find it aversive and pull away from it? In the assessment in sensing and learning, you indicate the strength of the positive or negative response with a 1, 2, or a 3, 1 being mild, 2 being medium, and 3 being strong. In some sensory channels, you're going to notice there may be significant delays, and that's important to note. One of the reasons a learner may avoid input in a particular sensory channel is because we rush our presentations. We present things too fast and then move on. And if you're noticing, and in this assessment, you want to prolong presentations as long as the learner's not indicating an aversion, and for up to 15 seconds, to see if there might be a delayed response. Some people do it longer than that. And then the intensity I mentioned before was a 1, 2, or a 3.
So for Adam, when we completed this assessment, we didn't have anything groundbreaking, and it was a little bit difficult. He had a bunch of +1s. I think, he was just kind of happy with everything, but we're really looking for something that stands out. A lot of our learners have something or a few items that really jump out, that get a great response, and we know immediately that is going to be a topic we are going to want to build some instruction around. For Adam, that was more difficult. The one thing that jumped out for him, though, was his interactions with his teacher, Martha. She was his +3. And so that is what we chose as our topic for our routine, and built everything else around that. And so I'm going to share a bit about what we use and how we build that routine. This here is the instructional routine template. We also call it a lesson plan because this is how we are going to build the instruction for the learner. I do want to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing when we're talking about this instructional routine, because I think sometimes the term routine can be used to describe an activity of daily living, something the student does, often, an activity that they like that happens occasionally. We are talking about here an instructional routine that is focused on what the learner is going to do to participate. The routine is highly accommodated, so we are specifically indicating supports that the student needs in order to participate to their fullest in that step of the routine. And we are also going to embed specific goals or skills that we're working on each step. And this routine is going to be done consistently. And when I mean consistently, a lot of our students do it every day, if not multiple times a day. So we need it to be happening on a very regular basis so that our learner truly understands what's coming, it builds that coherence, and it creates a pathway for true learning to occur. So I love this template, and this will be in the sensing and learning as well. So for Adam, we designed a routine that, like I mentioned, involved Martha, and we also were targeting those exploration level skills. So we designed the routine to be a turn-taking activity where Martha was going to be showing him different objects and different ways to explore them. That he could bang 2 items together, he could squeeze items, roll items, pat, bounce, drop, just a whole variety of different exploration schemes, engaging with a fun activity with his favorite person. So I'm going to show you a few clips of this. It ended up being a really long routine that he loved. So I'm going to show you just a couple pieces of it so you can get an idea of what this routine looked like.
Exploration. Adam learns to explore objects within a turn-taking routine. Ms. Martha and Adam sit on the floor in a black room. She presents a light spinner in his now container. Adam reads the object symbol, which indicates the beginning of his play routine.
So Adam, you want to play? Oh yeah, let's play. Okay. Let's play with our koosh ball.
Ms. Martha demonstrates play and exploration of a koosh ball. She passes it to Adam for his turn to explore. Adam touches the ball and passes it back to her.
Good job. Ready? I'm gonna pass it to you. Catch it. Catch it. Roll it back to me. Good job. You're throwing good.
Ms. Martha hopes to expand Adam's modes for exploration in this routine by visually modeling ways to explore a variety of unique objects.
Are we finished with this one?
After several minutes of constructive play, Ms. Martha and Adam place the object in the straw basket when they are ready to move on to the next object.
Here's our bowling ball.
Ms. Martha demonstrates how to shake, roll, and place her fingers.
I'm going to pause there and jump ahead to what came to be Adam's favorite object within the routine. Little passes.
Next, Ms. Martha gets 2 metal measuring cups and shows Adam how he can bang them together to make a clanging sound. Ms. Martha gives Adam time to visually attend to and grasp the measuring cups. He drops them a couple of times. Adam eventually grasps the cups and bangs them together. Ms. Martha uses measuring spoons to continue modeling how to bang.
Okay, I'm going to stop there. I see somebody asked in the chat if these items were going to be available in the new sensory kits. And I think that's a great question and they're not. But the reason is because these objects for the routine could have been anything. And the way we decided what to use for Adam's play routine was the group of our team members sitting around talking about what kinds of materials we thought would be interesting to Adam in particular and would be a good item that we could teach him something specific to do with it. So like the flip-flops, that's so random, but we were trying to teach him something that he could bang together that he could easily hold. And we knew that we could slip those flip-flops on his hands and that we could teach him to clap them together. So I say that just to say that these objects that you're choosing for a routine could be anything, and they should be. They should be something that is just interesting and engaging for your learner. And sometimes we don't know that what those things are yet, and that sensory response record is a great tool to help us learn and just, observations of how the student's engaging with different objects inside certain routines too. And I just love that he's able to pick up on these skills when she's teaching him them every single day. We did this routine on such a consistent basis and really fine-tuned as we went as a team. And he was really learning these different ways to explore. And we were just so excited to see that.
Exploration.
Oops, don't want to play it again. Let's move on there. Okay.
So Adam definitely graduated. He was his present level was attention with emerging exploration. With the help of this routine and his wonderful teacher, Martha, he established good, solid exploration skills. And we'll talk about his graduation to function in just a little while. So building receptive language, the approach for doing that in sensing and learning, or the sensory learning kit as you know it now, is through the use of object communication. And those of you who are familiar with the work of Dr. Jan van Dijk, an incredible researcher and teacher of students with deaf blindness, know his pioneering work related to object communication. And so this term calendar boxes comes from the work of Dr. Van Dijk. The sensory motor stage learner establishes good receiving and sending of messages skills with communication partners using object communication, and as do typically developing infants and toddlers. And then they move on up to more symbolic kinds of communication from there, but that's the base. So the use of a now container gives the context for sharing the symbol. What Dr. Van Dijk always taught us was that if you compare it to like reading print, that box is the book. And just like a book is a recognizable object, and we all know that it's going to contain symbols that are going to send messages to us, that box is like the book. And it's extremely important in cluing the learner into the fact that what's in it is going to be something that sends him a message. It's going to be a communication, just like the words in a book are communication. So choose a real object from a routine as the symbol that communicates to the learner the beginning of the activity he's going to be engaged in a meaningful way. So what that means is you have to have object recognition. The learner has to recognize the object in the calendar. He has to associate that object with memories and with established patterns of behavior that he's learned in interactions with the object. And then he knows what's going to happen. That creates coherence that I was talking about before. That's the stress reducer. Literally, the learner thinks, he doesn't have the words for this yet, but he thinks, oh yeah, I know this thing and I like it and I know what's going to happen and I'm ready to go. The calendar box provides the opportunity for receptive language, symbolic understanding of objects, and increased coherence for the next step. So how do we be engaged learning partners? We communicate through words, inflection, and tone. Words are important, but the first way words are important for sensory motor stage learners is they listen to the quality of our voices. And that's what I mean by inflection. So you can say words to a learner at the beginning of an activity, and you should, and it's very important. And the learner may not understand the meaning of any of the words you say, but he'll know whether you're in a good mood or a bad mood. He'll know whether you want to be there with him or you don't really want to. And those things are the groundwork for any interaction. And understanding and developing communication skills is dependent upon establishing that receptive, engaged, willing partner relationship at the beginning of any interaction. We're observant and respond to nonverbal cues from the learner. So if when I watched that interaction with Martha and Adam with the paint roller, what, and I don't know how conscious Martha was of doing this. I'm guessing very conscious of it, or Adam wouldn't have enjoyed his interactions with her as much as he did. But she applied pressure is what she was doing. Deep pressure was what was going on with the paint roller to various parts of his body, and he responded differently to the pressure on different parts. He wasn't so crazy about having it on his chest. He liked having it on the palms of his hands a whole lot. And so how did Martha know that? And she did know it. She knew it because he turned his body away when she put it on his chest, and he held his hand open when she approached his hand with it. So nonverbal cues. We are patient and give ample wait time. When I, as part of my research, measured the pace of the presentation of different things to learners, and how often things were presented, and the duration of the presentation, it was amazing what most people do. And TVIs, I'm not talking about you, but many of the people without our expertise who interact with learners take an object, put it on some part of their body for, the average was about 3 seconds. And then they move on to the next thing or the next action. And for many of our learners, that will create sensory aversion in and of itself. So we have to really look carefully at the pacing of the stimulation that we provide.
I love that these routines really just create the context for us to work on these communication skills, to be that listening partner, to target specific skills that we're wanting to enhance within our learners' skill abilities. And I also love that they create a context for measuring progress. Our team scheduled regularly occurring observations of our students engaging in these routines, and we also love to video them because then we can see them whenever we want, and we can see them probably more often. And as we watch these routines, we're offering feedback to the learning partner. We are tweaking the different accommodations that might be needed, but we're looking for growth. And I love that the routine is done in such a way that the learner is feeling safe, coherent. They begin to know what their role is. They begin to anticipate the next step, and we can see that as time goes on. And as we're seeing that, we can build in different skills as we go. We can offer opportunities for choice making within the routine. We can be that observant listening partner and respond if we feel like our learner is requesting more of an object or an action. And it just creates this beautiful context for that to happen. And I just absolutely love it. I really love that the video provides that opportunity to see the growth and then take steps on it. I think so often, sometimes we do routines and they go on the same way almost for too long when our learner's making progress and we don't respond soon enough. So in Adam's case, we saw the growth. We saw him exploring objects, not only in that routine, but he was starting to do it in other contexts. He would use some of these exploration modes to explore different items in his environment. So we knew it was ready. We were ready to move on. He had graduated the exploration level. We were ready to move him on to function. And I'm going to share how we did that as well. So this is a routine where we actually chose to create a whole new routine for him. We took the measuring cups that he loved in the play routine with Martha, and we wanted to teach him that those cups could be used for a specific purpose. And in this case, it's to make trail mix and using those measuring cups as a scoop. So I just want to show you how We created that for him just to give you hope that you can work on skills in a structured way and then continue to move your learner along using these strategies. So here is Adam learning his function level routine.
Okay. Start with Cheez-Its. Lid off.
Adam immediately reaches to take the lid off the Cheez-It container. Notice that Ms. Martha uses a one-word cue to begin scooping while handing him the measuring cup.
Scoop. Scoop.
Adam demonstrates engagement by looking at the snack, grasping the measuring cup, and initiating the motor movements. He needs support to execute the actions.
Pour. Good, Adam.
Ms. Martha puts away the Cheez-It snack.
Now pretzels. Lid off.
Ms. Martha limits what she says during the routine to isolate the key words and limit distractions for Adam.
Scoop.
She gives Adam elbow support while he holds the measuring cup. She waits for him to initiate the actions and then helps him to execute them as needed.
Scoop. Do you not want pretzels today?
Okay, I'm going to pause there. And I think Tristan mentioned in the chat that you can Google search APH sensory learning kit videos, and you will find Adam's full videos as well as several other of our learners that participated in our research. But I just love watching this. This is the early stages of Adam learning this routine. And I think what stands out to me is that I know that he could not have participated at this level when we first started with him back at that paint roller activity. He just was not there. He was not engaging with objects at that level. And so to see him moving along is just so exciting for me. And he's not the only one. All of our learners made this type of progress, and it was done with consistency, regularity, and specificity. I mean, we really nailed down every single piece of this routine and targeted it at his instructional level. So we're going to go on to another example, but before we do, just feel free to share in the chat if you have any comments or questions specific to Adam. And we're going to take a look at some more tools and with a hypothetical student. I don't have videos of Jack because I just made him up, but I thought it would be helpful to walk through the process one more time, just to kind of go through the steps. And I would love participation here from you all, just kind of talking through what you would do and what you think would be helpful for the student. So Jack is a student with CVI, CP, and he's been having a lot of seizures lately. We know that he likes music. His teachers say that he likes toys that make noise and that he really likes interacting with the teachers in his classroom. The teachers and the speech professionals want to really build his expressive communication and his receptive communication skills and build stamina to engage in their different activities throughout the day. So what do we think is our first step? What would we do? How would we start off with Jack? Where do we go from here? Anybody? Present levels. Thank you, Becky. We are going to start with present levels. So we're going to get a schedule from the teacher. We're going to look at what is an activity that she feels like he likes, that he engages in, that's a good representation of his present level. We can video that observation. We can come in person, and we are going to take our present level worksheet with us when we do so. We're going to observe at each piece of that activity, how is the learner participating? What zone is that learner in? What is their response like? What media are they using and what are the conditions? So for Jack, the teacher thought it would be a good chance for us to come see him engaging with his musical keyboard that they feel like he really likes. And so during this observation, we noticed that he starts off by looking at the keyboard. He's at an attention zone. The keyboard's presented in a calendar box, and it's presented with some movement and contrast because he has CVI. Next, he goes into a bit of extended state. He touches the keyboard with some assistance, but we may have been noticing that he wasn't looking, or maybe he was closing his eyes, and he wasn't really engaging during that opportunity. He comes back to attention when the music is playing. He's touching the keys a bit with some assistance, some hand under hand support from the teacher. She's trying to engage him and get him to participate in that activity. He ends with more extended state. He starts to stare off. He's getting fussy. The keyboard's on the table, but he's not really engaging. So I think, this is a kind of a typical reaction we see. It's something that we know that they like. They may smile and engage, but we're not really exploring. We're not really moving forward. We're not sure what we're looking for in terms of communication and how to move that student forward. So from this present level worksheet, what zone would we consider Jack to be? What is his present level based off of this information? For me, it'd probably be better if we were really there to see Jack. He's showing some attention, but he's spending an awful lot of time in extended states. So I would put him really functioning at extended states during this activity. He's showing us some attention level skills for some brief amount of time, but for real learning to occur, we're going to need him to spend some more time paying attention, and that is going to be our instructional level. We need to find out some more information about Jack. So we are going to complete a sensory response record. We need to find some things that Jack is going to get excited about, because if the keyboard is exciting and he's just touching it a little bit with assistance and then zoning off, I'm not sure that's going to cut it. We're going to need something that's going to get him a little bit more engaged than that. So we're going to do a sensory response record. And like Millie said, we're going to get a variety of items. And the way I would do this would be to set up some times with the teacher over a week's time, coming in just little spurts of time set aside at a good time of day for Jack when we know that he's typically awake and happy. And we're going to start with something that we know that he likes. Maybe we start with the keyboard or something else that the teacher knows he's familiar with. And then we're going to introduce some other things to get an idea of some potential topics for our routine. I would love if you could share in the chat some things that you've used in a sensory response record. I think this is a really interesting question because I love getting ideas from people. There's so many interesting objects, of course, the ones in the kit, but we've all got a bag of tricks as TVIs of great objects that we can use that are really exciting. And I see Marianne shared, it's important absolutely during the sensory response record to be thinking about what accommodations that learner needs to engage at their fullest level. Because if they have CVI, we want to present items in such a way that we're going to get the best visual engagement. Positioning is also incredibly important. You're going to want to talk to your PTs and OTs on the best position to do this assessment. And you want to do it in a time when there's not a lot of distractions in that room if possible. You really want to get the best interaction possible from your learner. I see some great examples and ideas in the chat about things that you could use, just animated toys, Play-Doh, putty, flashlights, scented wax, bop-its, things that make noise. I think the tinsel with the flashlight, those are so great. And I think on that note, it's important as you're gathering your data with your teacher and talking through some of these items, I like to share and discuss with the teacher beforehand, because she might say, no, you don't want to bring that. He absolutely hates putty. Don't even try it. And we don't want to. We don't want to set him up to be upset by anything that we're doing. We're really looking for what he likes. We also want to avoid anything that may cause a seizure or really send him into an extended state. That's not what we're trying to do. I like the plastic squeeze bottle for scented materials. That's a great idea as well. So for Jack, I put down that we tried bells, music, pom-poms, lotion, and a light up toy. And he seemed to like everything except for the lotion, had a negative response. And I'm looking for our +3s. Our +3s that we got for Jack are the music and the pom-pom. So I think these are great things to start off with, that we know that we could really build a routine. So I would love if you all could share some ideas on what kind of routine you might create that would involve one or more of his +3s. I think this is the best part. And I think teams grow more creative over time. I think Millie taught our team a lot about thinking outside the box when it comes to what you can use a particularly exciting object for and create a learning opportunity. Just it can be really creative and fun and unique to that student. And I think that becomes a really fun part. And, we steal ideas from our other learners. I can't tell you how many times we've used the play routine for Adam for another learner, just changed to meet their specific needs. So I think it just becomes really fun as you go along, and such a collaborative process. I'm not maybe as creative as some of y'all. I see some great ideas, but I decided that Jack might like a little cheerleading routine, something with a song and the pom-pom. So it was also engaged with the teacher, which we know that he also really likes. So I just wanted to show an example of how you could write this instructional routine. Again, we have the 3 columns where we have the learner step, we have the accommodations, and we have the embedded skills. So we always want to start with those learner steps. What do we want Jack to do? Knowing that we're going to use a calendar box as a way to introduce the routine, we want him to look, listen, and touch the pom-pom. That's going to let him know that we are starting a routine and that he's going to begin, hopefully, to anticipate what and where it's going to happen. On the accommodations, that's where you can put those really specific VI accommodations that we know that this learner with CVI needs in order to get that look and hopefully that touch. And that's where your other support professionals are going to add their pieces in too. And that's really, really important. I love when our speech professionals get involved and really help us define what word we want to use or exactly what we're going to say at that step. And we would put that in the partners' supports and accommodations. So we'll put that there. On the next step, we want them to watch the teacher shake the pom-pom and sing the school fight song. And so that's going to be our little routine where we're wanting to maintain attention with the object and the teacher and exactly what's going on. We can add some supports in there to help, him get the best opportunity to look at what's going on. And knowing your student, especially with CVI, you may want to shake and sing alternatively so that he's able to do both things within the activity. But we definitely want to make sure that we're talking through that as a team and setting it up for exactly what he needs. For your embedded skill, we can put there that we want him to maintain that attention, and you may get really specific. This could be your IEP goal, and you could make a determination for exactly how long you want him to pay attention. What do you think is an obtainable amount of time that you want him to pay attention during this routine? And you can put that right there. That gives you exactly what data you're going to be able to take and measure the progress. I think that is such a big piece of this, knowing exactly what we're looking for and when we know we've made the progress. The next step I put is that Jack will shake the pom-pom. And so after he's watched the teacher engage with the pom-pom, he's going to shake the pom-pom. So she can help place that in his hands with hand under hand support if needed. She can model. She's going to have ample wait time. We're going to indicate all of those things in the accommodations and support. And we're going to hope that he's going to begin to imitate those actions. But our real focus is that he's going to be attentive to what's going on, that they are going to be smiling, that this is going to be a fun activity. And I like this activity because it's really just an opportunity for that natural communication. You're going to be able to be that responsive listening partner. You're going to be engaging in something together, and you're going to be setting the stage for really authentic communication to be happening both ways. So this is our routine. As a team, as a TVI, especially, I would make sure that I'm coming to watch the routine. I'm going to offer my support and suggestions, like how could we tweak it? How could we get some better visual responses? All the team members can do that. We can take data and we can give suggestions of when we think it's time to move on. Hopefully we're going to see some great progress from Jack. We might either make another additional routine or we might expand this routine when that time comes, but I'm certain that we're going to see some support. Before we finish up, please share some questions that you have in the chat. I would love to hear any feedback or questions, or if you've tried these strategies and you've had great success, I would love to hear that. I want to end with just my perspective. The question I get a lot is, what exactly is the TVI's role with this? Because it sounds a lot like classroom teaching. It sounds a lot like maybe the speech professionals could use these tools. How does the TVI use it? And first of all, I would say learning it and understanding it is the first step. So we're here, and thank you. And hopefully this is a great lead into that. But I would really urge you to dig out your kit, explore what's in there. APH is offering access to the guidebook for free on that link for you to download the digital copy. And I would share it with your team. I would see what they thought. You know, if they're ready to get some progress and see some real changes in their learners, this is a great approach and an opportunity to learn together. I would share the research. I would dig out that article that we wrote and share it and say, this is research-based instruction for the sensory motor stage learner. And there's not a lot of research-based strategies out there for these guys. And so how great to have that to back this up. And then lastly, if you don't have a lot of team buy-in and you're not seeing it, a great place to start is to use the sensory response record and these tools as part of your learning media assessment. And I love that because it makes sense and it's practical and it leads you right to your paths for your instructional recommendations and accommodation recommendations. So that's where I would start. Again, I think that anybody that's used these tools and used them strategically and consistency will see the results, and then they will just not ever want to stop using them because they're so great. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. I know it's been an honor for me and Millie to share. We're both so passionate about these tools and these strategies, and just feel honored that we were invited here to share about them. So thank you so much.
Well, it has been a pleasure to have both of you, Stacey and Millie, to share with us today. Not only did your knowledge transcend, but definitely your that enthusiasm. Also, was just so communicated in the presentation. Everything was paced sequentially, and it was applied very well. And we can make those connections with what you shared with students that we serve, and also come up with additional ideas of how we can take things to make it even more unique for the students that we serve. So learned so much, but I was also reminded of things that I have easily forgotten about, that I really needed the gentle reminders. And so just thank you for that time that you shared with us today from the both of you.